How you doing? I'm Chris. You are watching Nature Here and Now. So, I want to show you something that I find to be really cool. First, there's going to be a gall, and I'll find them like rarely, but you sometimes find them on white oaks, chestnut oaks, and I think swamp white oaks. And it looks like this little white cotton ball with bright red spots on it. But the wasp is really fascinating looking. Check it out. Have a look at this right here. Doesn't it look like a cotton ball with blood on it? Well, this is the home of the Wool-Sower Gall wasp, and they're pretty cool. Let's dive a little deeper, shall we? Nature Here and Now. This gall is purely plant tissue. What happens is the wasp will lay its eggs in the winter. When those eggs hatch, the little larvae, or like little grubs if you will bite and cause little secretions into the plant tissues. And that causes the plant to kind of mutate and start to form this gall around it. And that gall is, well, it becomes the protective home to the wasp or aphid or whatever's causing it. Some of the aphids is actually pretty cool because it'll form, you'll have these tiny little balls of glucose within the gall, and that's what they feed on exclusively. I'm guessing that these wasps will be feeding on a similar food source, probably, glucose, to get that diet. The gall, of course, protects them from predators and from the elements, from wind and rain and all that good stuff. So they have a safe place to live and go throughout their life cycle, right in the kitchen or larder, if you will. I'm going to try to show you what these tiny little wasps actually look like. And it's probably not going to be easy, and they're probably going to fly away on me, so be patient. Let's give this a try. So here is what the wasps look like. They're about 1/8 of an inch long, and they look really robust and wide from the side. You can pretty much tell they are wasps. And if you're a little confused, the antennae are often a dead giveaway. Ants have like elbow or golf club shaped antenna. Flies generally have little short nub antenna, or they're shaped like a capital Y actually. And well, these have little wasp antenna because they're wasps. Like all wasps, they have pretty developed eyes, and they have that, a very distinct head, thorax, and abdomen configuration. If you can see right between the abdomen and the thorax, you've got that tiny little branch that connects the two, and that's called a pedicel. On some wasps, that's really long and thin. Due to the fact that these wasps develop within a white gall, I wonder why they're black. I wonder if that's to help absorb heat and help them in their development in their adult life. I have no idea. They're not the type of wasps that parasitize on other invertebrates and stuff. They pretty much feed exclusively on, well, this species feeds exclusively on oak trees. Now, even though they feed on oak trees, they're not really considered a threat whatsoever to the oak trees because they're so few and far between. You generally only get some galls on them, and the wasps are so minute that they cause very little damage. They're very seasonal. After late spring or summer, they pretty much disappear to show up again in the winter to lay those eggs and then hatch or emerge come spring. At first, these galls will be, really bright satin white in appearance, real fuzzy, just like a cotton ball. But as time goes on, you get these little red spots on them that are so bright. And if you know me, you know I love red. And then you get these little like bumps or protrusions on them, and that's where the red spots will be. And later on, those spots might turn kind of brown, and eventually the whole gall itself might turn brown. And then it's around that point, I think, that the wasps start to emerge from the gall. And there'll be a bunch of wasps within each gall, sometimes a few dozen. Now, if you were to actually tear apart the gall, of course, you'll find a lot of that woolly, cottony fiber and that's the tissue of the gall itself. But then you might see these tiny little green little things that look like seeds. Those could be the eggs or the actual little larvae themselves. And as they develop, they'll take on this like greenish, yellowy, coloration, and they move about like tiny little grubs feeding on the tissues. And then eventually they morph into the adult wasp. Like I said, there's never really enough of the wasps or the galls to cause any actual harm to the oak trees. So it seems to be a bit of a balance in the ecosystem and perfectly tolerable, between the two species. I know when people hear or see wasp, it strikes a little bit of fear or trepidation within their hearts. But these wasps are totally harmless to humans. They don't sting. You don't have to worry about that at all. Something else I find fascinating about these little wasps or galls, similar to some of the other species out there that do similar things, is the fact that they have alternate seasons, if that makes any sense. Like one year, the generation will target the leaf buds or leaves, and that's what they'll be doing, and that's what the offspring will be adapted to. And then the following year, they will alternate to the leaf stem, and they'll take on a slightly different appearance and all that stuff. So it's every other year that you'll have these little galls forming. And that also affects the physiology, as far as I know, of the wasps themselves. They're not the only things that behave this way, and I find it really cool. And that's one of the reasons why you don't see these things too often. Okay, off you go, little wasp. Thanks for the fish. So there you go. I just love wasps. Any of the Hymenoptera, actually. Bees, ants, wasps, even sawflies. I just love them. I find them, really fascinating. I find them kind of adorable. They're not nearly as cantankerous as people describe them to be. Even the yellow jackets or the bald-faced hornets, which are actually wasps. And I find them gorgeous physically. They're just so amazing to look at. And these galls, I love. I mean, this bright white cotton ball with bright scarlet spots on it. What's not to love? Anyways, I find it fascinating that they're black, even though they develop within a bright white gall. But come to think of it, a lot of the parasitic or even parasitoid wasps tend to be dark in color, if not black. So I wonder what that is. Is it because they're all somewhat related? It's one big group? Or is there an evolutionary benefit to that? There probably is. Maybe it gives them heat in the morning so that they can fulfill their task, warm up their body and move quicker. I have no idea. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're fascinated by galls, I have a few other gall videos, especially the witch's hat cone gall aphids. Those things are crazy. It's tiny little gall that has 50 or 60 aphids living in it, feeding on little spheres of glucose. And of course, I have a whole playlist of bee and wasp videos because I'm in love with them. And I suggest you check them out. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. If you watched the video this far, definitely hit that like button. And if you haven't already, I'd greatly appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, because it tells the algorithm that you like my content, and it helps me to be able to get out there, produce more content like the video you just saw. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Egnoto. I'll see you somewhere else. Jeez, Harmony. You're destructive. How much do you weigh?